Good morning, everybody. My name is Mr. Ryder. I'm one of the school counselors here at Wayne Hills.
Good morning. My name is Mrs. Montana. I'm one of the school counselors over at Wayne Valley.
And today we are both going to be presenting to you High School 101, A Guide to Success. So it's been a few weeks so far, and we want you to just take a little bit of time to stop and think about how your classes are going so far. Workload might be a little bit different from what it was like in middle school. Take some time to check in with yourself about how you're handling this change. You may have already made some changes in how you manage your time and organize your workspace, the different kinds of activities you're involved with, and how much time you spend on homework or studying. But just take some time to think about how things are going for you thus far. And if you have any questions, Ms. Montana and I are here to help, as are all of the other counselors at both Wayne Hills and Wayne Valley.
So there's a lot that your school counselor can help you with throughout your 4 years of high school. Obviously, we can cover academic counseling, scheduling, issues that come up at school. But what you may not realize is that we are trained to also help with personal and social counseling. That is part of our counselor education. So for any issues that arise, you can feel free to come talk with us about that. We also help with career planning and guidance, helping get ready for college, helping you with time management, and if necessary, helping to connect you with any community resources that might be helpful to you.
So here's a listing of all the different school counselors at Wayne Hills. We have Ms. Venezia Crilly, Mrs. Mann, Ms. Sandis, Mr. Keogh, Dr. Sicherer, and myself, Mr. Ryder. And you can see there our email addresses as well as the different letters of the alphabet. If your last name starts with an A or a B, for example, Ms. Venezia Crilly is your school counselor. Same thing all the way down the list there. So you can also check in OnCourse who your school counselor is if you have any questions, but this presentation will also be shared with you. So you can go back and look at this if you have any questions about who your particular school counselor is as well.
And here's the rundown of our list of counselors at Wayne Valley. Similar to what Mr. Ryder said, this is the letters that are listed, and the sections of the alphabet are the bulk of our caseloads, but each of us do have students who fall outside of that range. So it's always a good idea to check OnCourse to figure out who your counselor is, because you may be assigned to someone that you wouldn't necessarily anticipate. So we have Mr. Cheval, Mrs. Cirello, Ms. Laviola, Ms. Miller, Mr. Paul, and myself, Ms. Montana.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about attendance. We have on here the different numbers of, how many days you are able to miss of a certain class before you get to the point where you're losing credit for a class. It differs depending on the length of time of that particular class. So for a full year class, like most of your core academic classes or full year electives, if you miss more than 14 days in a full year class, you could potentially lose credit for that course, regardless of how well you did in the class, just because of your attendance. So this is not meant to scare you. Just keep in mind that these are some of the numbers. There are letters that get sent out through OnCourse if you start getting close to any of these numbers. The bottom line is that we just want to make sure you're in school as much as you can be. If you're sick, particularly in this year. Don't let this be a reason why you come into school if you're not feeling well. But just keep in mind that these are the different numbers. And down there on the bottom, just wanted to point out that arriving late to a class, if you're between 0 and 10 minutes late to a class, it'll just be marked as a tardy. But if you arrive beyond that 10-minute mark in a class, a teacher is supposed to put in that you were absent from that particular class. And that 10-minute time frame will change to 12 minutes if and when we get back to our regular school schedule for this year. But for the way that the periods are for right now, it's 10 minutes.
So this is a quick sheet that is put together regarding study skills. If you want to, you can pause this recording once it's been shared so that you can take a few moments to read this in more detail. But it covers the types of learners. So there's 3 categories typically that we would anticipate. There's visual learners, auditory learners, and tactile learners. Each section is fairly self-explanatory, but visual learners will learn most by being able to read things, by being able to look at things. Auditory learners, it's important for them to have a component where they're able to hear alongside any other information that's being presented to them. And for tactile learners, they really learn best with hands-on engaging experiences. So it's important to know where you fall in those three groups so that you can help communicate with your teachers, and you can help communicate with us so that we can support you as best as we can to help you find where you work best, to help you find what your strengths are, any resources that we might be able to provide to help you find different study habits or locations within your home or your school to do work, helping you make sure that the space that you are working in is set up to give you the greatest success. So any questions on this, or if more information is needed, please contact any of us.
Okay. And you may have heard of GPA before, so just wanted to take a minute to explain exactly what GPA is. GPA stands for your grade point average, and it's just a number that kind of represents how you've done overall in your classes during high school. Your GPA is cumulative, so you do have a GPA for each individual year, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, but your cumulative GPA is going to put all of those grades together and just give an average of how you've done throughout your time in high school. Just wanted to point out that by the time you get to be a senior and you're looking at potentially applying to college, the cumulative GPA that will be used to apply to colleges initially will be 9th, 10th, and 11th grade combined. But because you haven't actually earned grades yet in your senior year when you start applying to colleges, your senior year grades are not factored into the GPA that you initially used to apply to college.
Okay, so this is a copy of our grading scale. Again, very self-explanatory. We do grade on a 4.0 scale. You can see where the letter grades fall within the number ranges that you would earn on an assignment or for the final course grade. The range for an F is anything that is a grade of 59.99 or below. And again, these are the breakdown of the unweighted scale for the GPA and the weighted scale.
Okay, so how many credits do you actually need to graduate by the time you get to finish high school? It's a minimum of 135 credits required for graduation. So let's take a step back and just look at like what you're doing in your freshman year to try to get a better understanding of this. Any full year course is 5 credits, and there are 8 different slots in the day in which you take classes. So 8 times 5 would be 40 credits maximum in a given year. If we were to take 40 and multiply it by 4 over your 4 years of high school, that would be 160 credits would be the maximum that you could earn. So you can see 135 is much less than that 160. What that means is that you do not have to take a full schedule every single year of high school. Now you may want to, and that's okay. But if you feel like you need a study hall to help give you a little bit more time to work through some of your more difficult classes, or maybe you have a lot going on outside of school, that's certainly an option for you. You could take a study hall every year and still be able to graduate on time with enough credits.
So this is a little chart that we've put together to help you understand a little bit more when we talk about time management. What kinds of things are we talking about? You may have heard of exercises that people do to help calculate how many hours that they're spending in a day on certain subjects, but we need to factor in to help achieve a sense of balance. We need to make sure that we're leaving time for things like sleeping, making sure that you're getting enough time to spend on meals. So you can reference this chart and plug in the number of hours, estimated that you spend a day driving to school or driving to other activities. How many hours a day do you spend doing errands? How many hours a week do you spend on extracurricular activities, whether this is sports practice, a club that you're part of at school, maybe a job that you have outside of your academics? How many hours do you spend in class each week? And it all counts and it all adds up. So it's important to be able to account for your time. And once we have that baseline, then we can help figure out how we can manage the time that's available to you in a more effective way to help with setting goals, and achieving the success that you want.
So there's a video in here that kind of explains time management. It's a pretty common story. I'll just briefly explain it. You can go back once this presentation is shared and be able to play the video for yourself if you'd like. But basically the idea is that the rocks that you see in the jar there represent the importance of different things in your life. So in the video, the professor explains that if you were to fill that jar with the biggest rocks, the things that are most important in your life, you'd still then be able to add in pebbles that you can see there, the things that are still important, but maybe not quite so huge as those big ones like family and schoolwork and things like that. But then some of the other pebbles can fit in, and then there's also sand that you can fit in afterwards too, and those are some of the little things. But if you were to start the other way and try to fill up that jar with sand, you wouldn't have any space for those rocks, those big important things in your life. So it's really just a video to help remind you of how to prioritize the things that are most important in your life.
There's many ways for you to get involved during your time. We want you to be involved. We want you to feel part of the community. We know that you all have various strengths to bring that will make our school communities better. But we also want you to not overdo it. We need to make sure that we're still leaving time for the rocks and the pebbles in the jar. So some of the ways that you can get involved are by joining a club, joining a sports team, attending school events. This year, this may look a little bit different, but we certainly hope to be back to some kind of normal for the following school year, where we'll be able to attend, and have greater attendance at school events like dances, athletic events, things like that. So if you have any questions or need help getting connected with anyone who maybe advises a club or runs a team, your counselors can help put you in contact with those advisors.
And here are just some of the examples of some different clubs and activities that are offered. There are a million different opportunities on here, a ton of different ways for you to get involved. And if there's a club that you were looking forward to, but it's not something that we have, you can talk to us about starting a club. If there's enough interest from other students, that's something that we can help you put together. But as I said, there are a ton of different opportunities already available to you. And you can go and take a look at any of these clubs and activities by looking at the students page from either the Wayne Hills or the Wayne Valley website. And there will be a full listing there of all the different clubs and activities, as well as the advisors and who you need to contact to start getting involved.
So one thing that you'll hear us talk about over and over again is the idea of self-advocacy. And what that means is just that you understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. It helps you to develop personal goals. And most importantly, it helps you to be able to stand up for yourself when it's needed. So we know that these 4 years in high school can be a challenging time. Obviously, this year in particular, the transition to 9th grade is not something that any of your peers have ever experienced before. So we understand that that has implications socially, emotionally, and academically for all of you. Much of high school is new to begin with. The students that you're with, maybe people that you haven't interacted with before, as different groups and schools come together. The teachers are new, all their responsibilities are new. So it is important to be able to self-advocate and ask for help when you need it. And part of that is, included in being able to talk with your teachers, which we know can seem intimidating at times, but keeping that communication open is really critical to being able to develop the relationships here that will help you to build the foundations that you need.
And there are a lot of different problems that you might run into in high school. You may have trouble fitting in, getting adjusted to this new setting. Maybe you're upset about not making a sports team. Maybe there's peer pressure. Maybe there's some stress going on. Maybe you have some mental health concerns. And listen, all of these things are normal, a normal part of high school. And we are here to be able to help you with any and all of these different things. So the most important thing that we want everyone to take away from this presentation is that your counselor should be your go-to person for help. So whether it's any problem on this list here or anything even that we didn't include in this presentation, we are your first line of defense for you to come to be able to ask for help. We're here, all you need to do is ask.
So there's different ways that you can advocate for yourself. Certainly, we don't expect all of these to be things that you can check off during your freshman year, but this is kind of a sampling of goals that we would hope to work with you on as you go through the next few years. So number one is making yourself a priority. Maybe throughout the pandemic, certainly as we're coming back into school, we hear the phrase often, you can't pour from an empty cup, which is true. If you are empty, there's nothing much left to give to any of the other priorities. You need to keep yourself a priority too, so that you can keep moving forward. Believing in yourself. Also being able to determine where you're having trouble. Is it on an assignment? Is it something related to a skill or an activity with a sports team? And then the next step is to figure out who is the best person to talk to. And as Mr. Reiter said, we are here for you. In the school setting, we are kind of your first line of defense for people to go to. But this role could be filled by many people. It could be a teacher, it could be a counselor, it could be a parent, a youth group leader, or a coach with whom you have a good relationship. And then once you're able to identify who you need to talk to, set up a meeting with them and see how they can help you. Keep in mind any suggestions that they give you. And the most important thing here is to not let any fear of asking for help stop you from succeeding. We don't want that initial challenge of being able to ask for help eventually might hold you back if you're not able to overcome it. And everyone needs help, whether we admit it or not. We all encounter these problems, even though at the time sometimes it might feel like it's only you. We can promise you that it's not.
So here are just a couple of examples if you feel like, okay, maybe I do need help, but I'm just not sure what to ask. How do I phrase it? What exactly should I say? So here are just a few examples. Would it be okay if I talk to you? I'm having some trouble understanding this. Can we speak about this after class? I'm really feeling overwhelmed. Can you help me? Can we talk? All of the people here in the school setting, whether it's counselors, teachers, child study team members, administrators, everyone is here to help you. That's why we got into this profession. So all you need to do is ask.
So one of the most important things to keep in mind when speaking with a counselor, especially as we talk about maybe opening up about some of these more challenging topics, we want you to know that counselors are bound by confidentiality. And what that means is that anything that is shared in our office, anything that you share with us or say to us stays between us unless you give us permission to tell someone else. There are 3 exceptions where ethically, legally, we must tell someone else. And those cases are considered the 3 hurts. So those are if you are being hurt by someone else, if you are going to hurt yourself, or if you feel that you're going to hurt someone else. And in those cases, that is the boundary of our confidentiality. Those are extreme circumstances. So for the vast majority of things that you're going to be talking with us about, whether it's here in our offices, whether it's a virtual meeting, if you're a virtual student, we're still able to set up meeting times with you. We can still check in. We still want to get to know you. And just be confident that whatever you share with us will remain confidential and will not be shared unless you give us permission.
So with that in mind, let's talk about some of the different resources available at each high school. So the general resources are the same, but we just want to help to put some names with some of these different roles as well. So earlier in the presentation, we talked about all the different school counselors at both schools. Also, both schools have their own school counseling website that you can go to that has lots of great resources for help, and the link is on there. And then at Wayne Hills, we also have Mrs. King, who's our student assistance counselor. So she's a little bit different from a school counselor in that she doesn't have a specific caseload of students. There's no alphabet breakdown for her. She's here to be able to help every student. So if you want to talk with her, you can contact your regular school counselor or come down to the counseling office. We can help you get set up with her. We also have our nurses, our teachers, administrators, child study team people, and our school resource officer, Detective Foster, as well. So all of these different people are here to help you. And then down on the bottom, there are also some resources for you to be able to chat in real time with somebody if you're having some help outside of, if you need some help outside of school hours.
And in the same vein, the resources at Wayne Valley, we went through the list of the counseling department earlier. We also have a website that you're able to visit. Both of our schools have put great effort into this website. It's fairly comprehensive, ranging from everything from standardized testing, college prep, helping to understand how to navigate the 4 years of high school. So we hope that you're able to visit the website and take a look. We also have Mrs. Knapp. Mr. Reiter did a great job explaining the role of the student assistance counselor. Here at Valley, we have Ms. Knapp. She is available to help all of you. Her office is not contained within the guidance office. She is in the back, more towards the health office. But again, you can contact her directly, or you can contact us if you would like to locate her and set up an appointment. Our school resource officer here at Valley is Detective Caronia. We also have our school nurses, teachers, administrators, child study team, case managers that are available to help, and the same resources if you need assistance outside of school hours.
So that's the end of the presentation. We hope you enjoyed it. And again, as I said earlier, the biggest takeaway that we're hoping for everyone to get from this is that your school counselors are here to help. So thank you for listening and watching, and we hope to see you around.